Welcome to another episode of China Update, where I provide you guys with the most up-to-date political, economic and geostrategic analysis on the world's number 2 economy. My name is Tony. Let's jump in. Okay, happy Friday everybody. Almost the weekend. I hope you've all had a productive week and have a relaxing weekend ahead. Let's just dive into today's episode. Taiwan's leader, Tsai has started her sensitive stopover in the United States, part of an overseas trip to Guatemala and Belize, two of the few countries that still recognize Taiwan diplomatically. Before leaving, Tsai expressed, quote, "External pressure will not hinder our determination to go to the world. We are calm and confident, will neither yield nor provoke. Taiwan will firmly walk on the road of freedom and democracy and go into the world. Although this road is tough, Taiwan is not alone." End quote. As of filming, the president is currently in New York, where she will remain until Saturday. She will transit through California on her way back to Taiwan too. So far, Beijing has been relatively restrained, outside of strong statements of condemnation of the trip. Commentators warn, however, that if there are to be fireworks, it will likely come with the California leg, where she is expected to meet US lawmaker McCarthy. Quote, "Former President Ma's concurrent visit to the mainland and the conciliatory image the PRC is trying to create from it may have caused a restrained reaction so far to Tsai's US visit, but depending on whom she meets in the US, especially in California, the reaction may expand beyond the current rhetorical condemnation." End quote. And that rhetorical condemnation has been there in force. The chargé d'affaires for the Chinese embassy in Washington is calling Tsai's trip, quote, "merely a disguise for her true intention of seeking breakthrough and advocating Taiwan independence. Whether coming to the United States or the US leaders visiting Taiwan, it could lead to another serious confrontation in the US-China relationship." End quote. Here referring to the reported belief of US intelligence that a Tsai trip to the US would be less provocative and dangerous than a McCarthy trip to Taiwan. We remember earlier this year, leaks from the Pentagon indicated that the US military wanted to avoid another Pelosi trip episode. Very tellingly too, White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan made a previously unreported call to his counterpart in the PRC, just prior to Tsai's trip. Neither side publicized the call. In typical fashion, state media has not shied away either. Quote, "The stopover also drew strong protests among Chinese nationals who called Tsai a traitor of the nation outside a hotel where she is staying in Manhattan." Note that this article is in English, and the traitor of the nation can also be translated as traitor of one's race. We continue with the quote, "Some held banners saying, 'Selling out Taiwan is national sin,' and 'Tsai is a big traitor of China.'" End quote. In contrast to Tsai's US visit, former KMT Taiwan President Ma Ying-jeou is currently visiting mainland China in his own historic trip. In Wuhan, Ma met with the head of Beijing's Taiwan Affairs Office and expressed at the meeting, quote, "Regrettably, due to political disturbances and the COVID-19 pandemic, exchange programs were severed for years, and it worries me to see the hostility of people across the strait grow." End quote. What compelled Ma to make this trip to the mainland? Commentators are debating this currently. For example, quote, "I see Ma's visit as a form of performative politics for Kuomintang voters and potential voters. This reflects a core Kuomintang foreign policy. They are able to deal with Beijing pragmatically and maintain friendly relations to secure peace for Taiwan." End quote. In Nanjing on Tuesday, Ma paid tribute to Sun Yat-sen, the so-called father of modern China, a figure respected in both Taiwan and on the mainland. At his mausoleum, Ma expressed that the leader, quote, "shaped what the Chinese race should be today," end quote, adding that all Chinese should follow Sun's spirit, quote, "to pursue peace, avoid war, and achieve revitalization of the Chinese race," end quote. We can see from several of these statements covered the role of ethno-nationalism in modern Chinese political thought. Taiwan officials have indicated publicly that although they anticipate Beijing will intensify its military operations around Taiwan, they do not expect a response on the scale the world saw after the Pelosi trip last August. Quote, The situation this time is not as complicated as the time when the former Speaker Nancy Pelosi visited Taiwan last year. It is in the common interest of the US, Taiwan and mainland China to prevent unintended incidents, and we have been in close communications to avoid unnecessary crises." End quote. Next up, the Chinese economy. If you guys are enjoying today's episode, don't forget to hit that like button. It's a big help. And as always, anyone who can go that extra mile and help keep the channel sustainable, Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee links are in the description below. Thank you so much, everybody, for the ongoing support. Okay, let's continue. Corporate balance sheets were savaged last year, and the big question for 2023, with the hope of moderate growth, is when will the bleeding stop for balance sheets? It may end up being a sector-by-sector question too. Let's touch on a few high-profile players. Chinese financial media outlet Tsai writes today that Chinese property giant Country Garden Holdings Co. Limited reported its first annual loss since its Hong Kong IPO in 2007. Quote, highlighting the plight of the country's builders amid a prolonged slump in the real estate sector plagued by sluggish home sales and a shortage of funds. End quote. This is a big deal. According to China Real Estate Information Corp, Country Garden is China's largest developer by sales value. According to its earnings report released yesterday, Thursday, the developer logged a net loss of close to $888 million in 2022, in stark contrast to 2021's $4 billion in profits. In the report, the developer described last year as a harsh winter for the property sector, that it needed to, quote, keep clear-headed because the market will not recover overnight, end quote, and, quote, the property sector is still under great strain, end quote. Yet, Tsai writes, Country Garden benefited from regulators' efforts to prop up the property sector. The developer successfully raised nearly 10 billion yuan through direct financing and obtained credit lines totaling over 300 billion yuan from more than 10 banks. Meanwhile, the mega conglomerate Fosun, F-O-S-U-N, or Fuxing in Mandarin, International Limited, saw a devastating 2022, reporting a 95% plunge in profits. The giant Chinese company, which operates a wide variety of businesses ranging from real estate development and tourism to pharmaceuticals and consumer products, reported a net profit of 540 million yuan, $78.2 million in 2022, down 94.7% from 2021. The Fosun chairman said the company expects 2023 to be better, particularly for its tourism and retail businesses. We remember last year that the company came under mounting pressure from its huge debt overhang, with a debt crisis growing in June when its dollar bonds suffered a record sell-off after Moody's Investors Service put Fosun on review for a downgrade, forcing the company eventually to aggressively sell tens of billions of US dollars worth of assets in order to repay debt. Commentators believe Fosun is just one of many over-leveraged companies that have had their balance sheets hit over the last few years that may be pushed to similar desperate measures in order to survive. Okay, that is today's episode of China Update. Thank you so much everybody for watching. Have a wonderful weekend, and I will see you all tomorrow.